Wow, wow, wow. I can't say I'm surprised, but I am a little shook about this news. Yo, what is up, guys? It's your boy Jim Michael, and I'm here giving y'all another banger. And since I'm giving y'all another banger, if y'all could go ahead and like this video, it'd be much appreciated. And if you enjoy basketball content, go ahead and subscribe to this channel because I make basketball content, and I know that if you like basketball, then you would love this channel. But without further ado, let's get into today's video, which is going to be talking about Russell Westbrook. And this type of video is going to be a little different from the other videos because it's going to be like more rant type, but I just do want to talk about this situation because I do have so much to say about the Russell Westbrook situation and how it's being handled and how it's going to be handled and what the future has for Russell Westbrook. So if you don't already know the news, Russell Westbrook wants out of the Houston Rockets. He no longer wants to play with James Harden, and James Harden doesn't want to play with Russell Westbrook. It seems that Russell Westbrook wants the ball in his hands, and he is not willing to play off ball in order to sacrifice for the team. This type of attitude about being ball dominant doesn't surprise me out of Russell Westbrook, but it is so compelling to understand how a player manages himself, because as a fan, I just can't understand how a superstar NBA basketball player won't do what's right for the team. I just don't understand how, yes, Russell Westbrook, you do probably want to have the ball in your hands more. And I understand stat stuffing to a little bit. Like if you're 3 points away from 50 points and the game is well already over and the decision's already going to come out, you already know who's going to win the game, and you want to go in to get those last 3 points for a 50-point game, or if you're a rebound away from a triple-double, like things like that are so understandable to me because yes, you do want a triple-double, you do want a 50-point game, things like that make sense. For a man to go out onto an NBA court and not care about anything else than making sure the stats that he has are what he prefers is absolutely ridiculous to me. I just don't understand how you can do that when you know that your teammates are also players and they want to succeed as well. And how can you get close to those guys, but you're not even willing to do what's right for everyone, even though you're close to these guys and you should probably care about them because you spend so much time with them. For me, for a guy not to be able to sacrifice just a little bit for the betterment of the team says so much about Russell Westbrook. I think there are so many factors that go into this, but I think the biggest factor that goes into Russell Westbrook and his mentality, and Russell Westbrook's mentality has always been, I'm going to pull and I'm always going to drive and I'm always going to go 100% all the time because he just has that Energizer bunny inside of him. However, I wonder if sometimes if he were to just work less and just think smarter, he would benefit so much more from his play, because it's not like Russell Westbrook can't be effective, because he can. Russell Westbrook averaged 27, 8, and 8 after he slowly started to take less threes post All-Star game, and he was so much more effective for the Houston Rockets. So I just don't understand how he knows that he can be effective, and he knows that if he just sacrifices a little bit that he can win. And I just don't understand how winning isn't always the top priority for him. I would never accuse him of not trying to win, but what I'm saying is that how can you not just do what's better for the team, which might be you pulling a little bit less or you deferring a little bit less, which I just can't understand why he can't. But going back to my original point on what I think caused all of this for Russell Westbrook, it's that I believe that he has had too much success post KD for him to ever change his mind. I think since he has left Kevin Durant, he has won an MVP. He willed his team to the playoffs that one year right after KD left. He averaged a triple-double. Everyone loved him. He hit game winners. It was crazy for Russell Westbrook. He's had 3 triple-double seasons since KD has left. It seems like he's getting everything he wants, especially that Supermax deal. So for Russell Westbrook, everything about his mentality has gotten him this far. His mentality that I'm going to go out and I'm going to grind and I'm going to out hustle. It's me and everyone else. You know, he said that Spalding is his only friend on the basketball court. That mentality has gotten Russell Westbrook this far, especially when you think about where he's come from, not the best upbringing, to finally a superstar who signed a $200 million contract. That all plays into to these people's heads because these basketball players are human, guys. And as a human, stuff like that plays into your self-serving bias. And because he's averaging a triple-double, and because he won an MVP, and because he got that super max deal, that plays into his self-serving bias, which only confirms to him that what he's doing is correct. So I don't doubt that in Russell Westbrook's head, he believes that this is the best way to play basketball because it's gotten him this far. But I do believe that at some point, the best players are the ones who can adapt. LeBron James had to learn how to adapt. Michael Jordan himself had to learn to adapt. Phil Jackson had to come up to him and say, Michael, do you want to score 50 or do you want to win a championship? And he had to learn how to adapt. And it worked out because they started winning. All players, even Kevin Durant and Steph, they both had to adapt just to play with each other. All players have to adapt in order to grow as a player. So if Russell Westbrook isn't willing to just step back and look at how he's playing and learn to adapt to what the NBA is now and what is necessary for the team, then he'll never really win. And what I fear the most for Russell Westbrook is that he will eventually get the Carmelo Anthony treatment. Teams just thought that Carmelo Anthony was too inefficient. He took too many shots. He played bad defense. And you couldn't build around him because he didn't really seem to win much when you did. So teams started to look at Carmelo Anthony and said, we're not going to be willing to pay you whatever amount of money that you want because it was Carmelo and you know that he wants a lot of money. So there was a period when Carmelo Anthony couldn't find a job. And it wasn't until that Carmelo looked at himself personally and said, you know what, maybe I should stop caring about the stats and start looking at how I can contribute to making a team better. It wasn't until his mindset was changed that he was able to come back into the NBA, where the Blazers offered him a job, and now he has proven that he is more than capable than holding his own in an NBA court, and he has now regained some of his value and will definitely be picked up by some team this offseason. So I fear something like that is going to happen to Russell Westbrook just because his mentality is going to not change because he thinks that it's working, and that eventually there's going to be teams where they're going to be looking at him, especially if, God forbid, he gets injured. They're going to look at him and say, you know what, Russell Westbrook, we're just not going to be willing to pay you whatever amount of money you want because you're just too expensive, you're inefficient, and maybe you don't even prioritize winning. With that being said, we have to look at where Russell Westbrook can end up after this. Now, I don't know where Russell Westbrook will end up, and unless you're really close to Russell, I don't think anyone knows. But I do believe that there are three main destinations that I believe are the most believable. I'll start with one that I do not believe is believable, which is Russell Westbrook to the Clippers. Russell Westbrook to the Clippers makes no sense because Kawhi Leonard wants a ball handler who can make decisions on the basketball court so that he doesn't have to facilitate. And if you want to pick up Russell Westbrook as your facilitator, it's not the fact that he can't get assists, but do you want him as your decision maker down the stretch of games when it's no longer about assists, it's about you making the correct basketball decision? I wouldn't trust that, and I don't believe Kawhi would either. So the other three that we're going to be looking at are the Knicks. Now, the Knicks might happen just because they might want to set a culture reset in the New York Knicks just because they haven't won, they haven't been relevant really. But why would you trade some of your young pieces, which one of them would probably have to be Kevin Knox? Why would you trade Kevin Knox for Russell Westbrook when you could just develop this young core and continue to draft and continue to suck and collect draft picks, which will eventually help your team with this young core and move forward, than trying to dismantle some of it just so that you can be in an awkward stage where you're winning too much and you can't get a draft pick, but you're not winning enough to be title contenders. I just think that that's a really bad place for the Knicks to be, and that they should keep their picks. This team is the one where I believe that if no other team offers Russell Westbrook, he'll end up at this team, and that is the Hornets. This only makes sense because the Hornets have absolutely nothing. They would have to trade basically their only good pieces, probably centered around Bismack Biyombo and Nicholas Batum and other players, and they would have to be traded for Russell Westbrook. So you would already be gutting a bad team with some of their best players and just adding Russell Westbrook. So it would really just be the Westbrook show over in North Carolina. But I really think that if you were to end up in the Hornets, it would literally just be someone in Michael Jordan trying to save Russell Westbrook's career, because Russell Westbrook is a Jordan endorsed athlete. As an athlete, Michael Jordan doesn't want one of his players to look bad. So if there is no team willing to give up anything for Russell Westbrook. He is probably going to end up with the Hornets just because Michael Jordan doesn't want one of his signature athletes to be looking bad in the NBA. And this last one is the best case scenario when it comes to Russell Westbrook, which is the Detroit Pistons. In this case, I believe that this is something that possibly the Houston Rockets would be interested in, which would be a trade of Russell Westbrook for Blake Griffin. Now, I'm not too sure how happy Blake Griffin is in Detroit. I don't believe that he's been that happy at all. I believe that he's been quite sad in Detroit, and I know that he has beef with Steve Ballmer because he was traded. Blake Griffin might not want to stay in Detroit, and he would be a player that I think the Houston Rockets would be interested in pairing, because a pairing of Blake Griffin and James Harden might be a dynamic duo and might be good enough to possibly become serious title contenders in the Western Conference. Also, it would also sort of work out for Russell Westbrook in a way, which is kind of pathetic to say. You know, when you're sending a superstar to Detroit, that's not really a great thing. So to say Russell Westbrook's best case is probably to end up in Detroit is a true fall from grace for him. But if he ends up in the Detroit Pistons, he could again be the superstar Russell Westbrook. He would be averaging his triple-double. He would probably bring fan interest up a little bit. They might squeak into the playoffs as an 8 seed. You never know. And that's where Russell Westbrook would continue his career as who he is, a player who builds stats. He's electrifying box office, but perhaps not a player that you want to play with in order to win a championship. But with that being said, guys, that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for listening to this video. If you like it, please go ahead and drop a like. That would help so much out with the channel. And please subscribe if you haven't. But without further ado, guys, I am out. Peace.